What's up, everyone? I don't know what day it is. This is all very confusing. I do know it is tea time on the West Coast, but I can guarantee you this is not tea, and that's probably a good thing given the hour. So I can tell you that much. Thank you so much for joining today. In case you don't know what the hell this is, you're watching what's going on. I've had an incredible privilege in the past month and something to talk to some really incredible researchers and research leaders and other UX practitioners and product practitioners and just a bunch of really talented people who are crafting user experiences or helping other people craft user experiences and working within this UX community. And that's great. So this is season 1 of UXR Conversations, and there's still more coming until kind of the end of May, beginning of June for this season. I'm also putting out some more recorded content and edited content, and just a bunch more stuff is coming. And if you want to check that out, then you can go to my YouTube channel and see all of that stuff over there. These are the details if you want to check it out. There's going to be some fun stuff there. I'm Noam. I am Director of User Research at Wealthfront. I am a dishwasher extraordinaire these days. I'm a mediocre teacher and a professional dog walker. This pandemic I have many roles during the pandemic and beyond. And with me today, and I'm so happy she is Kacie Wise, which, by the way, is super unfair. It's unfair that you have Wise in your name. That's as if, what if I called myself Noam Genius? Like,
you should do that. Or I can see if my husband has any relatives and you want to change your last name as well.
No, that's not happening. I'm just saying it just seems unfair. But you are Wise, so you deserve the name.
Why? Thank you.
You are head of experience these days. You are head of experience at Lookback, a marvelous research tool that, if those of you watching haven't tried, I suggest you do. It'll really help you connect with your users, your clients, your customers, whatever you call them. We are going to talk about research advocacy today, which is something I haven't done recently. So I'm very excited about that, including this fascinating situation you're in, which we'll get into, where you are an advocate of advocates, essentially, because you are advocating for researchers and research teams who are in turn advocating for their users and their clients. So that's all pretty good. But let's start just casually. This is a casual show. You typically live in Portland, right?
Yes.
Have you been to Shalom Yol, the restaurant Shalom Yol?
I love Shalom Yol. Yes. When it was even a little stand in the Pine Street Market, and now it has two brick and mortars in the city.
It's just crazy to me that the best Israeli, so I'm Israeli originally, that the best Israeli restaurant on the West Coast is in Portland, of all places.
Do you feel that? Have you been there?
I have, and I've been to many Israeli restaurants all over the US, and I genuinely believe that of the ones I've tried, it's the best.
Ah, that is very good to know. Well, nice that there's a Noam seal of approval.
Which is crazy. Anyway, I like to start with just giving people some perspective on your journey. One thing I noticed, which is kind of interesting, you've done a lot of volunteering, it seems, including several years dedicated to cleaning up beaches. And I wondered, do you surf? Are you a beach bum when you're not working at Lookback and being a parent and doing everything else you do? What's behind that?
I think that I was born with a little sand in my toes. My mom grew up at the beach, and then my grandmother lived at the beach. So we would go to the beach often as a kid growing up. And so that is my happy place. And then back when I lived in San Francisco, I met a group of people through a triathlon training, and they did open water swimming in the bay. And I immediately became addicted to that. So swam all of the bodies of water in the bay and Alcatraz handfuls of times. And it's my place. The Golden Gate Bridge, we got married like near the Golden Gate Bridge, and saltwater just has these magical principles for me. And I still pick up trash on the beach, independent of the Surfrider Foundation.
Good for you. And one more thing which kind of stood out to me in your past, as I kind of define myself as a foodie, I guess, is that for a while you worked at Good Eggs.
Yes.
Which is a crazy good subscription service for just really high quality stuff, which none of us can probably afford, but sometimes you splurge a bit on like the best jam or salt ever.
The best.
Really the best. What was it like working for what I consider a pretty unique startup? Because I think Good Eggs, they kind of view themselves as a tech company and platform that's in, maybe the grocery space, but it's a bit more like Sweet Green and other companies that really care about the technology powering it. They care about people's health and well-being. There's a lot more to it than a delivery service for a bunch of grocery items, right?
Right. Well, it started off as like a mission-based organization, and within the last couple of years, they became a B Corp. But the idea with Good Eggs was to make to bring sustainable food to the masses. And so I was there early on as we were kind of figuring out like who our customers were, which was a lot of the work that I did when I was there. But then also figuring out like, what does marketing look like? And what do the events look like? What do partnerships look like? Like trying to figure out how to build the community. But what I thought was so interesting about Good Eggs is that it's this on-demand grocery store system. So they marketed themselves as really an operations company. Like, how can we get the best quality food to people as quickly as possible? And with the Amazons and the Instacarts, it's, within an hour, previously within a day. With Good Eggs, it was really fascinating in that you would place your orders online and the orders would be sent to a food maker or farmer within like a 50-mile radius of San Francisco. And they would harvest the product or package the product or bake the bread or pick the apple off the tree, transport it to Good Eggs, and then deliver it to you. So over time, it was that Josie Baker Bread baked a loaf of bread for you that was warm when it arrived to your door that evening. And totally, or, the most amazing Arkansas black apple picked from DeSoto farms, picked off a tree, like within hours of you getting to eat it. And so the only way that they filled their shelves was based off of orders. So you're not dealing with waste, you're supporting local farmers, you're encouraging not only organic farmers, but farmers that can't necessarily purchase the like expensive organic farming certifications, but encouraging their business while not filling up shelves with food that ultimately rots or dies because it's not being used or purchased. So it was a grocery store twice a day. It filled and emptied twice a day, which was just incredible.
Really unique. And I could talk about food all day, but I think we should get to some advocacy talk and some research talk. Can you remind everyone and myself, what was your first kind of purely research role in your career? When did you start doing research as opposed to some other stuff?
So my first research role, one second. Hi. Hey. I'm going to finish up this call.
We love
you guys go outside.
We love kids on this show. We love kids. They can participate if they want to.
Okay. Well, you'll hear them. This is COVID. Great. I'm still on my call. I love you. Yes. Was when I was working at SY Partners. So it's an innovation consultancy in San Francisco and also in New York, but working with leaders and their teams developing, their vision, succession planning, developing their overall business strategy. And so interviewing those key members within the org to understand, what's working, what's not working, what are the headwinds, what's getting in your way. So it was like the beginnings of interviewing before UX research actually began. And I was fascinated by first sitting in on those conversations and then helping to get to run those conversations as well. So ethnography was introduced to me at SY Partners as well, doing ride-alongs with customers and of J&J or various minority groups that were in the grocery shopping experience. And it was just fascinating for me from an anthropological standpoint to really get into the day-to-day of real users. Can you please give me some space, sweetheart? Thank you. Get that out of here right now.
I wonder, have you done this thing with your kids where you ask them what it is they think you do? What would your kids say if you asked them, what is it that you do day to day? What would they say? You don't have to ask them now.
Yeah.
Maybe if they
give them some space.
But what do your children think you do? Have you asked them?
They think that I am on computers all day and that I work with iPads. I think that that's what they would say.
They're not wrong, I guess.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. What would your kids say?
So I have a baby and a 5-year-old.
Right.
The baby is less relevant for this conversation, but for my 5-year-old, what I kind of explained is that I help people understand other people. Basically, that's kind of the core of my role, which I think is fairly accurate. Hopefully, I do some of that job.
Yeah.
Now, I've never had agency experience myself, and I wanted to ask you, so your work spans both agencies and working in-house at companies like eBay, or these days working at Lookback.
Mm-hmm.
When we start thinking about the concept of being an advocate and research advocacy, whatever that means to you, what's your take on doing that in an agency versus doing that in-house? What's your ability to be an advocate? And I'd love for you to define that a bit for us. In an agency versus when you're in-house at a company like eBay or these days Lookback.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like when you're inside an agency, you have all of your you have your various clients, and so I think tooling just off the bat is completely. It's either you have a company that supports you purchasing tools to support like various needs across all of the various client experiences that you're being brought on to provide services for, or you have clients that are willing to pay for this tooling as well, or you just test out these tools. I think that depending on which type of company you're working for, like it could be like a quick 12-week engagement, it could be a 3-month engagement, 6 at SY Partners. Sometimes there were 2 and 3-year engagements. So the ability to invest in both research and doing it from like the discovery all the way through execution standpoint, or to invest in a tool for like a very quick turn project. I think it just really depends, because you're advocating for research to your manager, who might bring that, who might see the belief in that. You're advocating to your client partner, who may or may not see the belief in that. And you're trying to also advocate to your team as well to integrate within like a potentially really quick and intense project with a very clear deliverable at the end. So I think the advocacy for research in those situations, it's a shorter period of time, but similar in the sense that you want to quickly get in and demonstrate value early on. You want to demonstrate that research doesn't have to be this expensive investment, and that you also want to demonstrate that you can interview reflective. You can interview customers that are reflective of your global audience in a very short period of time. So I think some of the research that happens early on in the agency space is more skunk works and proof of concept to then get the permission to do deeper research projects. but again, like in those larger projects with like the multi-year engagements, there's like an actual budget that's set aside for research and discovery, and like months and months of work that's dedicated to that type of investigation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So tell me about your role these days. What does head of experience mean? I don't encounter that title often. I certainly encounter titles around user experience, but I'm not sure in your case that's the focus here. So whose experience, what experience? Tell us about this role and how it ties to research advocacy.
Sure. So I was one of the early adopters of Lookback at agencies and also at eBay. So I was an enterprise customer of Lookback very early on, and through that became really close with the team at Lookback. You know, whether there are large projects that are coming on, new features that are coming on board, demos, and I got to be really close with them. When I came on board at Lookback, it was this unique perspective around how people use the product day in, day out. So what is the role of the experience of a moderator? What is the role of the experience of an observer? What is the role of the experience of a participant? Having conducted so many studies using Lookback, so really truly understanding and being able to advocate for the various experiences using the product. So that was how head of experience came to be. It's, titles are, title.
It can be a bit random sometimes.
Yeah, it's super random. But I think the essence is like having used the product for so many years beforehand and being on the participant side, being a moderator for all of them, and then also understanding the role of observers, like how can we best serve the needs of those unique audiences on top of the users who are purchasing our product of Lookback. So if we're thinking about advocacy from our user standpoint, there's also advocacy from our customer standpoint, purely from taking on Lookback as a product, as a vendor. So, if you're thinking about a researcher, like what does a researcher need to know, need to understand from a feature standpoint with Lookback? Like what is your research strategy and how can you be successful using Lookback? So being able to have that similar language and to help support their research strategy, having been on that same side, whether it's talking to someone who's on the research ops side. So, being the internal advocate for Lookback within their company, what is the information that they need to know about our product to be successful, to be able to communicate about research basics at a high level internally so that we can advocate for them in their role in helping advocate for research as a whole. Through to, research leaders, design research leaders, what information do they need to see to deliver on their overall like revenue objectives? Like, how do I know that Lookback is going to be the right product for us? Is it going to give us not only like what we need from a pure research perspective, but are we going to see it, are we going to be able to generate insights in a really quick turnaround? Like, is it going to cost us a ton of money? Like, how do we even quantify the value of the product to these various user groups? So it's not just thinking about who uses and participates in the experience of Lookback through user testing, but it's also the various customers that we have who are trying to advocate for research from very different perspectives internally.
Yeah. Going back a bit there, one thing you said is something I've thought about a ton, which is, do you need to have used the product for a while to kind of be a good researcher on that product or work within that company? So in other words, I guess I'm asking, how much of an advantage do you think it's given you at Lookback and as an advocate of Lookback or an advocate of advocates, the fact that you used it for so long before you ever joined, right? What did researchers? Sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm wondering because I think a lot of us struggle with that as researchers, kind of with the whatever imposter syndrome or other emotions we might have about joining a company and doing research where we don't really have very deep experience with the product ourselves. And you started mentioning that it builds trust with the team you're joining, right? That's kind of one of the benefits of that.
I think it builds trust with the people that are using our product as well, because you're talking to. I mean, this is my feeling. It's authentic. Like, we're talking to a researcher who's conducted research using this product. Like, it shouldn't be that you have to use this product like handfuls of times to be good at it, because it's a UX tool for UX researchers. It shouldn't take that amount of kind of onboarding to get good at it. It should be intuitive. But the idea that when you're talking to someone about a product, it's less from a pitch and upsell, but hey, I understand that what you're trying to do from an ethnographic perspective is to do this. Have you considered Lookback in this way to do this and set it up in this way? So it becomes more of a research partner and an ally to an existing research program, whether it's a person that's new to research altogether, whether it's a research ops person who's really trying to establish their role internally and be a beacon for all of the tools that are available to help make their researchers succeed. So it feels authentic. Like that's like, I really appreciated talking to vendors and partners who had been researchers themselves, because it felt like we were sharing the same language, and it felt that there was this like shared understanding. And it just gets me excited that I get to talk about research to researchers using a product that I am really passionate with, that helped me be successful in my previous work.
How often are you talking to non-researchers? I guess I'm a bit surprised by that. I imagine that most of the people you talk to are either research ops people or researchers, research leaders, whatever. How often are you talking to someone who has no background in research?
Well, I think that's the change of the industry, right? It's how can we? There's a limit on how many researchers can be onboarded, or investment in research ahead of like pure design maturity at organizations. So before that happens, or even just due to an inability to grow a research org right off the bat, for whatever reason, the idea of democratizing research, it's definitely a buzzword, but the idea that there's no secret here in what we're doing, but there are skills that are really tangible and with various levels of like an expert quality. Had a really amazing conversation with a new customer recently about how their content and design teams are being onboarded at a like 101, 201, 301, and 401 level of research expertise. And it's not the expectation that everyone gets to 401, but that there's more there's a spread of knowledge about like basic research practices to enable more people to conduct maybe usability studies, interviews, like how to ask the right question, how to recruit for the right demographic, et cetera, so that the researchers themselves are doing more forward-thinking research. So envisioning what the future of a product may be, envisioning an entirely new space, but like amortizing the responsibility of research and the need for research across many, to not only like spread that skill, but also to generate more insights as a company. And I think that's the dream, right? To have that established. And really it's from the CEO, who has this really strong belief in research and this mandate to make sure that everybody becomes a level of researcher.
Yeah. By the way, we have a comment here from Omid. Thank you so much. Hey, Kacie and Noam, great conversation. working in an agency setting myself, your point about demonstrating inexpensive, quick wins to clients early on to show value resonated with me a lot. So thank you for that comment. It's interesting. We typically work in cross-functional teams these days, and so I work with a lot more non-researchers than researchers. I imagine you still work with a lot more researchers or research ops people than non-researchers. What's that like, and what do you feel like some of the challenges or cool opportunities that researchers have in various orgs are right now? One thing you mentioned, which I think we could talk about a ton, is research ops and kind of these burgeoning teams of incredible research ops professionals who are supporting and enabling all of this work to happen. It's an incredible thing to see. I think just like UX research has been on the rise for a few years now, it's research ops time. And I am, I've had experience working with research ops. I've had experiences not having research ops people. I'm so grateful
Yes.
to everyone in the research ops community for the incredible work they do. What's your take on some of those trends in our industry and working with research ops versus researchers, and whatever you want to share about helping different groups of people advocate for their research, for the tools they need, etc.?
Yeah, I think research ops, definitely. We talked to a number of leaders within that space, and I think that it's becoming the more established area within UX research. Certainly, I think how can we equip them to have this like strong voice within their org to be experts at recommending tools based off of any number of research needs that are expressed by their teams. So how can they be indispensable to their research teams because they know the quick use cases for all the tools that they've brought on? They're also doing annual audits of all of their tools to make sure that the money that's being spent across all of the tooling makes sense, that they're getting value out of it, that they're getting value out of each one to justify the cost of these tools. So it's really like, staying in close conversations with them to make sure that they have all the information they need to help support their teams. I think another group that we talk to a lot is our the IT teams who are in charge of doing the installations internally. Similarly, they may not have experience at all with research, and so it's kind of starting from ground zero to just have like the very basic understanding of like what the teams are trying to do using our tool, and then bringing on other team members within their org. So maybe the head of research, maybe the head of design research, maybe their head of digital tooling, and forming those connections internally as like this secondary the secondary goal too. It's giving them more exposure as a result, but really demonstrating that they're actually part of this like larger team to help support research as well. And then designers are doing so much research just as part of their UX designers, design researchers, or designers too, in companies that don't have a research function. So you want to make sure that the tool that we have is not so like gorpy with research heavy, kind of cold, like former traditional kind of like language and UI, so that anybody.
What was that word? Gorpy? What does gorpy mean?
Like, I don't know, like thick.
Is that a weird? Is that like a weird porn thing?
Yes, just a weird Kacie thing. There are lots of those. So
I thought you were wise, Kacie. That doesn't sound like a wise word to me.
Wise and goofy, yes.
It's a good combination.
Oh, thanks.
I have kind of two big questions for you. So first of all, you talk about value a bit. You also talk about the cost of research and how expensive it can be. I think when you're advocating for research or research tools, you are advocating for the value of research, and then you're advocating for the tools that enable that research to happen. When you think about the value of research or the return on investment of research or whatever you want to call it, what's your kind of philosophy on that right now? And I'm asking you with all of the different hats I think you have as a researcher, both in agencies and in-house, as the head of experience at Lookback these days. What's the value of research in your mind right now? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So the value of research, I don't see it as ROI of research. In fact, I think that's just really that it doesn't sit well with me. Just like the idea of putting a quantitative measure on something that's like so organic and qualitative. So I think that that's in itself like the hardest part of communicating value to non-research. Well, I say hard, but it's actually it's exciting. It's like demonstrating the value of qualitative. So really understanding why people are behaving in certain ways, like not leaving it up to purely resting all of your business decisions off of numbers and like quantitative data, but really like layering in and making data smarter with the layer of qualitative on top of it. So if I'm thinking about the value of research, it's to really have that human, authentic rationale to why we make decisions and to how we can make our products more meaningful. And that is only, in my mind, something that can happen by talking to people. I think it's really hard to grasp from just writing words in an open field box. But to actually have a conversation with someone and be triggered to a deeper topic that provides this like unexpected insight that becomes the mantra for why you do something. I feel like that is what is the value of research, is having the time and the patience to do that digging from like the most curious and objective place and coming out of it all with this kind of like North Star guiding light that just like leaves a feeling that inspires.
I feel you. No arguments for me on that one. If and when I make kind of swag for this YouTube channel of mine, not if, but when.
When, yeah.
The first person to get the swag will be, of course, Tiana X, who has asked the question every single time I have gone on the air with this show. So get in touch, Tiana. I'm telling you, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make you like a t-shirt or something cool. You deserve something for your loyalty to this random YouTube channel. So she wants to know, hi, Kacie, nice meeting you here. Can I ask you, how does it feel working at Lookback, which is a company so committed to advocating for research? Do you feel it's easier for researchers to make an impact? And I mean, I agree. It seems like you're fortunate these days to work at a company which is obviously committed to advocating for research and enabling teams to do great research. And you're also a researcher within that company, and you still do research. So what does that feel like? And maybe you could, yeah, I mean, let's leave it at that.
Yeah, nice to meet you. So that in itself is like hands down the most exciting piece. The fact that we get to come into a company as a researcher, building a research product for researchers. So like layers upon layers of truth right there. So the idea, so both my colleague Tabanitha and I started around the same time. Tabanitha is a design researcher and I'm a UX researcher. We were kind of heralded like when we started. It's like, we have researchers. These are researchers. They speak as a customer. And just to have that excitement about research and generating insights and finding new and unique ways to talk to customers and bring tips and tricks on how to even improve our research practice. Just to have that support is really special. And and so having that support, but then also having the support to, speak up when there are things that we can do even better. When there are insights that we can really quickly, it's like we said before, it's like we can actually get some additional customer insights. Let me just take a day and reach out and get some insights, and we'll add to this just to make it even stronger. And so that same magic, that same qualitative evidence, so to speak, it still resonates for companies that are in user research. So that in itself, it's just like an added layer of happy.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks, Tiana, again for the question. I had one more kind of big thing I wanted to ask you. I've been in some heated conversations, let's say, about the topic of researchers specifically being the voice, the advocate of the user. And I wanted to ask you your perspective of that. When you think of researchers specifically, as opposed to a bunch of other teams, if it's a B2B company, for example, especially, then maybe customer support and sales and other teams. What's your take on research as the advocate of users versus indeed a more democratized way of thinking about that? Who are advocates for users within a company, in your opinion?
I would say that it would be a shame if researchers were the advocates for users in a company. I think that we want everybody at a company to be an advocate for the user. And I think that's what user research and building the research practice within all of these orgs is about. That's what researchers want. We want designers to join and listen in on research or conduct research. We want PMs to do that. We want our CEOs to do that. We want everybody. We want our support team to do that. There are so many inputs about the customer experience that any one person cannot be responsible for all of that, because it's not until everybody has this shared belief in the value of the research and can truly empathize with our users that change can actually happen, and that you can build even better products, and that you can come up with and innovate better. Because if you're I don't think that research should ever be seen as a gatekeeper of knowledge, and that any one person is responsible to know a customer. It's just unrealistic. I think the value and the future of user research is to get everybody involved in understanding our customers, so that we can all work together and build products together with a shared understanding of who we're serving.
Yeah. We have another question from Omid again. I love this question. I think about this a lot. So you touched on qual research providing human insight, but how would you talk about misconceptions about research, to non-researchers? For example, why not use analytics? Why not do 200 interviews? Is this limited data valid? Etc., etc. So when you are advocating for the advocates or advocating for your own research, what's your response to those sorts of misconceptions?
Yeah, so it's analytics. It's analytics. What were the three?
So things like analytics or the number of interviews you're conducting, or the limitations of the data you're collecting, basically, especially with qualitative research.
Yeah, because I think qualitative research, immediately when you're presenting to teams, it's like, well, is that statistically significant? And so I think we're always teaching our teams and adjusting our practice as well. But analytics alone, it doesn't tell the whole story. I think analytics encompasses qualitative and quantitative. So I'm a firm believer of quantitative is the what and qualitative is the why. So this is definitely behavioral. We see these things happening in our product and we can posit like why this is happening. Why not talk to customers and understand their behaviors to really get at the why so that we have this like full picture. And then when we're talking about quantity of interviews, I think, user research is not just a one-time thing and it's done. I think, again, part of the educating our teams is about like iterative research, just as we're doing iterative product development, iterative designs. So research is reaching out to that, sample set of 6 to 10, depending on like which expert you decide to follow, and finding out what you learn in that and adjusting and testing again. So you're always trying to get more information, but testing with 200 people isn't going to give you you're not going to hit the bullseye on that. You're going to get lots of information, but you are spending a lot of money on a big study without the possibility of adjusting and getting further, learnings. So I think some of it's like in building how you build the practice and also how you talk about research with your team. So qualitative, quantitative is analytics, the what and the why. It's not the quantity of interviews, but the fact that you're adopting this iterative approach, just as agile, just as design as a whole. And then the last being, will you remind me, Noam?
I mean, it's all around that topic. So I think you've covered it well. For a couple of things. First of all, I absolutely agree with your framing around the what versus the why. And I think the why is incredibly important. I feel like your role is somewhat meta in the sense of being an advocate for advocates. So I'll be a bit meta here too, and give Omid and others the example of this YouTube channel and whoever's watching it, and me thinking about what else can I offer and what other content should be on it. And I can look at the metrics and see the growth and see how long people are watching videos and which videos. But it would be so much easier and so much more fruitful for me to simply ask a bunch of people what it is they want to see. These are things that cannot be measured. It gives me the why so much more clearly. I mean, the value is insane. And I just don't think the quantitative measures come even close. The second thing I have to mention, to all of you people out there who ask, well, is it statistically significant? Yeah. So just a very brief, like very general lesson, and I apologize to the statisticians and the data scientists if I'm not getting this, fully accurately, but I have reasonable quantitative training. If you collect a large enough sample of whoever, pretty much anything can and will come out statistically significant. That doesn't mean the effect you're finding is at all meaningful, certainly in the real world. So statistical significance can be manipulated. Yeah. And just by asking that question, you're probably making a mistake, and you should probably review some of what that stuff means. So quick suggestion, virtual high five. Before we end, I'd love you to share a bit about kind of what's exciting right now at Lookback and how Lookback is currently, and if you're able to share, is planning to help researchers advocate for their users, advocate for their research. What are you up to right now, which is kind of helpful to the research community, and you just wanted to give a shout out?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, Lookback, for those that aren't familiar, allows you to, it's a product that uses the front-facing camera and the screen, so you can have an interview with anyone, anywhere in the world and see their face and also their touch and their screen. So it's a really awesome way to basically like have the lab on the go, but regardless of where you are. You can also bring in observers, so 20 observers, to have this behind the glass feeling where they can talk amongst themselves, they can participate in the session. So it really mimics the lab experience. We recently rolled out a new product or new feature within our product called Rounds. And Rounds is the ability to essentially folderize. So we built this to accommodate mixed methods research. So within Lookback, we have this hierarchy where you build projects, and within each project has rounds. So those are like iterations. So you have multiple prototypes, you might have live sessions, you might have in-person sessions, you might have unmoderated sessions. All of those live underneath one project. And then within each round is a session. So it's a better way to organize your research and to also mimic the mixed methods and iterative research approach. So that has been received really well, and we're excited to push that further. We have some really exciting video improvements that are going to be rolling out soon, which be excited to share in the coming couple of months. Aside from that, we're really we've in the last couple of months have rebuilt our iOS and Android products. So incredibly fast. The ability to do remote moderated on mobile devices is huge, especially given the times now. So companies who were at one point solely in person are now resorting to remote moderated. And so there's a lot of information that we've been publishing on our blog and in our help articles around how to support remote research in this new world. And that has been really exciting, having those conversations, helping companies like reimagine what research looks like in this post-COVID world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Awesome. We are at time. My producer is telling me, which is me, of course, I can't stop making that idiotic joke. And I've watched other more experienced podcast and videocast hosts always ask this question. So I feel like I need to, because I don't know what I'm doing and they do. What should people reach out to you for, and how can people reach out to you? We've already added your LinkedIn and Lookback's website to the show notes. Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, you can email me directly with questions. I love talking to people. I'm Kacie at lookback.io. So reach out to me that way. You can also reach out to our support team at support@lookback.io. We are active on Twitter, so feel free to engage us in conversations, as Noam does often with our CEO, Henrik. We are also very easy to access through Intercom on our website. So many different ways to reach out to us, personally through my email as well. We look forward to talking with you about research.
Awesome. The wise, Kacie Wise, head of experience at Lookback. Thank you so much.
So good to see you again.
It's awesome to see you. And for everyone else, again, if you're enjoying these conversations and want to see more content, you can check out loads of more conversations and more stuff coming right there. And if you want to have a conversation about a topic that matters to you in the UX or UX research realm, I'm at noamseg@gmail.com or noamseg on the Twitter. Have a great afternoon and rest of the week, everyone. Happy hump day. And catch you next time, which, by the way, is tomorrow, because I just can't stop having these conversations. So be on the lookout for an announcement. Keeping this show going.
You're on a roll. You're on a roll.
On a roll. Bye for now, everyone. Have a nice evening.